The CEO's unexpected call. A baby's cry for help by voice of Sophia. The CEO, Sarah Morgan, sat in her sleek corner office, the only light coming from the soft glow of her desk lamp. The city outside was quiet, with only the occasional car passing on the streets below. She had always been a night owl, a perfectionist who thrived in the solitude of the late hours. Tonight was no different. She had been working tirelessly on a major business merger, one that could solidify her company's future for years to come. The weight of this decision was heavy, but Sarah was used to shouldering burdens. She was a leader, a visionary. She had built this empire from the ground up. As the clock struck midnight, her phone rang, breaking the silence. She glanced at the screen, expecting a message from one of her colleagues in the Asia office. But the number was unfamiliar. Strange, she muttered to herself, pressing the answer button. Hello. A faint sound echoed on the other end. At first, it was just silence, then a soft, unsettling cry. A baby's cry. Sarah froze. She didn't know why, but something about the cry stirred something deep within her. A pang of fear. A memory she couldn't quite place. Hello, she said again, her voice sharp, expecting to hear a voice on the other end. But the only response was more crying. Desperate. Panic-filled. Who is this? Sarah's voice cracked with confusion. She was trying to process what was happening. Who would call her at this hour, and why would a baby be on the other side of the line? Is someone there? She asked, her mind racing. She waited, hoping to hear something, anything. Then, a shaky voice finally responded. It's Charlie. Please, she's in trouble. The voice sounded frantic, barely coherent, and Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Charlie, she repeated, the name familiar but distant. Who is this? What's going on? The voice on the other end was breaking down. She's been taken? I need you, Sarah. I don't know who else to call. Sarah's pulse quickened. Who is this? Where are you? What do you mean, she's been taken? The voice struggled to explain. The words came in broken phrases. The desperation in their voice mirrored the urgency of the situation. Sarah's mind raced. She had to help. But who was this person? And why were they calling her? Charlie. Sarah repeated the name to herself. The memory was becoming clearer now. Charlie was a name from her past, a name she hadn't thought about in years. It was the name of a little girl she used to know, the daughter of a woman who had been her closest friend. Sarah had promised to always be there for Charlie. But that was before her life became consumed by work, before she had shut off those parts of herself she could no longer afford to keep. And now, here was Charlie's baby, crying for help. Sarah's mind raced back to the years when she had been a different person, a person who made promises. But somewhere along the way, she had let those promises slip. She had buried them. There was no time for things like family, like love, when you were climbing the corporate ladder. But now, the past had come rushing back in a way she could never have predicted. A child, helpless and alone. The urgency in the voice on the phone was enough to break her. She could no longer turn away. Stay calm. I'm coming, Sarah said, the decision weighing heavily on her. As Sarah left her office and stepped into the cold night air, she could feel the chill in the air, but the coldness within her heart was even more intense. The truth was, she had never been one to focus on family. She'd always been about business, always putting her work first. But as she drove through the city, her thoughts began to unravel. She hadn't just lost touch with her family, she'd actively pushed them away. The memories hit her like a tidal wave. She remembered Charlie's mother, her old friend Emily. Emily had been everything Sarah had once wanted to be: kind, compassionate, focused on the people who mattered. But when Sarah had decided to throw herself into her career, Emily's life had taken a different path. Emily had gotten married, had Charlie, and found happiness in ways Sarah never allowed herself to. Sarah had promised Emily she would always be there for Charlie. But that promise had been buried long ago. The tears in the baby's voice echoed in Sarah's mind as she raced through the streets. Charlie had been kidnapped, and now, the baby was in grave danger. The baby was alone, and Sarah had to save her. The person on the phone had been Emily's sister, Sarah now realized. She had been calling in a frantic attempt to reach her. But why Sarah? Why was it her, after all these years? The reason became painfully clear. It was because Sarah had once promised to be there no matter what. And now, the promise was all that mattered. It didn't matter that she had failed in the past. The stakes were higher now. A life was on the line. Sarah sat at a red light, her hands gripping the steering wheel. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. What was she doing? She had worked her whole life to build something that could never be taken from her, a successful career, recognition, respect. And now, here she was, driving into the unknown for a child she had barely known. But the voice of the baby on the phone wouldn't let her ignore the responsibility. The decision was made. Sarah arrived at the house in record time, her heart pounding in her chest. She threw open the door and sprinted inside, feeling her shoes slap against the hardwood floors. Emily's sister, looking frazzled and exhausted, ushered Sarah upstairs. When Sarah entered the room, she saw the baby lying in the crib, her tiny body trembling, her eyes wide with fear. A flood of relief washed over Sarah. She was safe, but it wasn't over yet. The baby wasn't out of danger. She still had to find Charlie and bring her home. The past was catching up with Sarah, but she couldn't let it overwhelm her. She had a family to save. The search for Charlie was long, and the emotions were even longer. Sarah found herself reflecting on her choices, wondering how she could have let everything get so out of hand. She had avoided her responsibility, leaving a part of her life to rot in the shadows. But now it was time to face the consequences. In the midst of the search, Sarah encountered Emily's sister again, and for the first time in years, she realized the extent of her neglect. She had been so focused on her success that she had allowed the people who mattered most to slip away. It took hours, but finally the team located Charlie. She was found safe, but shaken, hiding out in an abandoned house. The rescue was bittersweet. Yes, they had saved the child. But Sarah's real journey was just beginning. For the first time in years, she was reconnecting with the family she had distanced herself from. And it was painful, but it was also healing. The little girl she had promised to protect was now safe, and in the process, Sarah had started to heal too. Sitting with the baby in her arms, Sarah realized something. She had been given a second chance, not just to save Charlie, but to save herself. There was still time to mend the relationships she had abandoned. It wasn't too late to be the person she once promised she would be. As Sarah held the baby close, she whispered a vow to herself. "This time, I will keep my promise."